The King of Kings is rotting alive, and the court is pretending nothing's wrong. Behind Versailles' golden mirrors, the Louis XIV's body is black to the hip, splitting open, crawling with flies. And what they did to him after death, that secret was buried for centuries. Picture Versailles, 1715. Louis XIV, the man who ruled France longer than most dynasties lasted, gasps for air in a bed draped with silk and gold. Courtiers kneel, priests whisper prayers, but no one dares meet each other's eyes. Because beneath the powdered wigs and muttered litanies lies a sight France was never meant to see. God's anointed ruler collapsing in on himself. His left leg, once praised for its regal stride, has turned black, splitting apart to expose yellow fat and bone. The smell? Sickly sweet, like meat left to rot in summer heat. And here's the part that will haunt you. The deeper we cut into this story, the worse it gets. What truly killed Louis XIV? Was it gangrene, gluttony, decades of war, or something far darker, hidden in the silence of his own court? Wait until you hear what they did to his body after death. A ritual so grotesque it would echo for centuries. The story begins quietly. August 10th, 1715. Louis XIV returns from hunting at Marly. The man Europe once worshipped as Apollo incarnate now limps toward Versailles. 72 years on the throne. 76 years old. Teeth long gone, skin paper thin, legs swollen from gout and decades of indulgence. Yet until now, he has survived everything. Revolts, assassins, famine, endless wars. Then a single ache in his left leg changes everything. At first, physicians call it nothing. A touch of sciatica, they say. By August 13th, a black spot blooms on his ankle. The skin tightens and cracks. The smell shifts, faintly sweet, like fruit rotting in the sun. This is dry gangrene, flesh dying by inches as arteries starve. Imagine walking those halls. Gold ceilings, mirrored walls, and the quiet buzz of flies gathering around a king. Louis insists on ritual. Even now, in unrelenting agony, he performs the lever, the ceremonial rising where nobles crowd to hand him stockings, to bow before a leg they cannot name aloud. Picture the courtiers suffocating under powdered wigs, pretending not to see silk hiding rotting flesh. The absurdity is almost comic. Almost. Treatments begin. Poultices, bloodletting, incisions and prayers. Every cure fails. By August 20th, the pain is constant, described by one attendant as burning knives under the skin. By August 25th, the rot creeps to his knee. Servants faint carrying chamber pots. Dogs refuse the chamber entirely. A chambermaid later confesses, "We burned the linens nightly. The odor still clung to our hair." Then comes the confession. Louis whispers to his confessor, Abbé Fleury, "I have loved war too much." Think about that. The man who bankrupted France for glory, who built Versailles on corpses, begging forgiveness as his own body turns corpse. But you weren't supposed to hear this. Official bulletins call it a slight indisposition. No mention of blackened flesh. No hint of the muffled screams behind drapes. By August 28th, whispers of amputation ripple through the court. Surgeons argue, should they cut above the knee? But here's the conspiracy. No one dares. A crippled king invites rebellion. A dead king preserves the myth. Better to let him rot slowly. And if you think that's bad, wait until you hear what they did to him after he died. The royal bedchamber becomes a battlefield without swords. Curtains drawn, incense thick, whispers sharp as blades. It is late August, and the king lies propped on pillows, rosary slipping through trembling fingers. His leg is hard as wood now, splitting to reveal yellow fat. The smell drives priests to gag. Imagine kneeling there, gold leaf overhead, death crawling up the royal thigh. The doctors are desperate and divided. Francois Fagon, chief physician, insists amputation will kill the king outright. Georges Maréchal, royal surgeon, argues it is the only chance. Others mutter about quack remedies, bull's semen poultices, crushed pearls, deer marrow. Every day, the flesh worsens. Every day, their debates grow more frantic. But here's what they don't tell you. These debates aren't just medical, they're political. Cut the king's leg, and you parade weakness to the court. Leave him to rot, and you preserve the image of majesty at the cost of the man beneath. Which matters more to Versailles, truth or theatre? Meanwhile, official bulletins lie. Paris is told of mild indisposition, even as servants burn linens nightly to fight the smell. Peasants in taverns cheer rumors of his decline. After decades of war taxes and famine, the rotting king is their justice, God's punishment in human form. Inside Versailles, silence is enforced. Speak of the stench, and you are dismissed. One servant whispers years later, even the dogs would not enter. Think about that. Dogs, creatures drawn to carcasses, refusing a king's bedside. That is how foul it was. By August 31st, Louis drifts in and out of delirium. He begs forgiveness, mutters prayers, raves of hunts and wars. Courtiers stand silent, already plotting the regency of 5-year-old Louis XV. They're waiting for death, not to mourn, but to manage the spectacle. And this is only the halfway point, because the horror doesn't end with his last breath. It begins there. Louis XIV dies, a disgusting death on the honest of September 1715. Versailles falls silent. No cannon salute, no choir, just silence, and a faint buzzing of flies against window glass. 72 years on the throne end in stillness. His final words, "Why weep? Did you think I would live forever?" But death is not the end. It is the opening act of something far more grotesque. The autopsy begins within hours. Not in some sterile room, but right there in his bedchamber, the same golden stage where nobles once bowed to him every morning. Imagine standing in that room. Gold mirrors, velvet drapes, incense burning to fight a smell that keeps winning. No gloves, no masks. Just surgeons, knives, and boiling water in gilded basins. The first cut is quiet, a slow line down the belly. Then comes the sound no one writes in the bulletins. The soft hiss of gas as the intestines rupture, the room filling with the stench of sweet rot and stagnant blood. One witness describes hardened arteries, like chalk snapping under the blade. His throat muscles are gangrenous. His veins are black threads. The leg, entirely mortified, recorded one surgeon, is black to the hip, splitting apart like wet wood. And yet, the heart is pristine, untouched, perfect. That detail sparks whispers. Why is the heart spared while the body rots? Divine providence or deliberate preservation for relic cults? Think about it. This is a court that turned the king's anal fistula surgery into propaganda. Why not turn his heart into a relic? Why not curate the parts of the Sun King worth worshipping and bury the rest? Tradition demands division of the royal corpse. The body, embalmed and sent to Saint Denis Basilica outside Paris, resting place of French kings. The heart, sealed in crystal and lead, entrusted to the Jesuit Church of Saint Antoine. The entrails, wrapped in linen and entombed at Notre Dame Cathedral. 3 graves, 3 relics, a holy trinity of royal flesh. They perfume the organs with wine and spices, but nothing masks the smell. Courtiers faint during the funeral procession. Priests choke on incense. Yet bulletins to the public describe a serene passing. No mention of pus, flies, or ruptured intestines. And if you think that is where the horror ends, wait until the revolution. Because this corpse doesn't stay buried. Louis XIV is dead, but the battle over his memory begins the moment the coffin leaves Versailles. Official histories work fast. Sermons praise his piety. Painters depict serene deathbeds, rosary in hand, gaze fixed heavenward, no sores, and no smell. Versailles is scrubbed clean, linens burned, floors sanded, bedchamber redecorated. Tourists centuries later will see mirrors and fountains, never knowing those same halls once reeked like a slaughterhouse. But gossip lingers. Peasants whisper of the stinking king, a monarch whose blackened leg was divine punishment for famine and war. Forbidden memoirs surface, describing his leg splitting like wet wood, and flies thick enough to darken candles. Clerics denounce these accounts as slander. Which version survives? The myth, not the smell. Fast forward to 1793. The French Revolution shatters royal graves. Mobs storm Saint-Denis, just north of Paris. Tombs are pried open, bones flung into pits, lead coffins melted into bullets. Louis XIV's remains vanish into lime and mud. The monarchy ends, not with coronation, but with unmarked graves. Yet, the king's heart, that pristine organ, survives, passed hand to hand through collectors, resurfacing in London a century later. And here comes the detail no one believes, but is absolutely recorded. In 1848, English antiquarian Richard Buckley tastes a fragment of that preserved heart. He calls it powdered dust, faintly sweet, faintly bitter. Imagine it. The Sun King, once a living god, reduced to a mouthful of ash, eaten for curiosity. And here's the cruel poetry. The man who fed France on spectacle becomes a snack for strangers. The monarch who built Versailles as theatre leaves behind a relic so stripped of reverence it's consumed like cheap communion. What does that say about power, about memory? When a king's greatest legacy is not his wars, nor his palaces, but the smell of his rot and the taste of his heart. So what truly killed Louis XIV? Was it the gangrene crawling up his leg? The gluttony that hardened his veins? The wars that drained his people and left him surrounded by silence? Or was it something quieter, darker, a court too terrified to speak the truth as their god-king rotted alive before them? Think about Versailles today. Tourists wander mirrored halls, fountains sing. Gold leaf glitters. No one smells the sweet rot. No one hears the flies. The memory is clean. The history is airbrushed. But you know better now. Behind those walls, beneath the marble, there's a stink that can't be washed away. A monarchy that decayed from the inside out, long before the revolution tore it apart. And here's the part they never write in the textbooks. A king's flesh can rot, but history rots faster. The myth of Louis XIV endures. The truth of his death was buried twice, but not anymore. And if you want more forbidden history they tried to burn with the linens, subscribe now. And if this wasn't horrific enough for you, then click the video on the screen to see why the Vatican had to bury the autopsy of Charles II of Spain.